So my name is Emma Barnes and I head up the marvellous team here at Consonance HQ. So a quick introduction to Consonance. What is Consonance? Consonance is a publishing management system, and if you're watching this stream, you probably use it at work to update and look up your product metadata, your contacts, your contracts, your rights and royalties, your production workflow and your Onyx feeds. And in this course, we're going to cover the whole of Consonance. We're going to go from start to finish, from the very beginning of a work's life, when it's just a twinkle in the commissioning editor's eye, all the way through to when it finally falls off the backlist and rights are reverted. We are going to cover this process through a series of sessions because there's a lot to cover. And this is the first, and we're calling this session Acquisition. But every company has a different naming convention for the different processes that they go through. So if you don't call it acquisition, doesn't matter. This is the start of our process. And the process might look a little bit like this. Acquisition, hands over to editorial, hands over to production, then we do selling, and then we're dealing with money at the end. Again, you will have different names for these stages. I mean, no one calls the royalty stage money anyway, right? But you know, it's the bit where you get in and send out money. And these stages will occur at different times and they will overlap, but essentially what we all have is a process of getting a book from our imaginations onto the bookshelves and beyond. Now, this is a highly involved process. There is nothing straightforward about getting a book to market. Multiple people, multiple teams have to be involved, all coordinated. Any number of things can go wrong. There has to be rescheduling, replanning all the time, and that's one of the reasons why Consonance includes a workflow management system that keys off of existing dates within the rest of the system, such as publication dates and manuscript delivery dates. We're going to be looking in depth at that workflow approach within all of these sessions. But today we're at the very start of the process. The bit that's full of optimism and hope and enthusiasm that this season will have a breakthrough work, a real doozy, nibbies for everyone. Today we're the acquisition editor or commissioning editor or whatever you want to call it in-house, and we're going to begin the process of adding some new works. So these are some of the aspects of acquisition. We've got metadata setup, getting the real basics in place. Then we've got project setup, you know, doing the initial critical path and understanding who is roughly doing what and when. Then we get the contract sorted out, and we're going to be doing those early stage aspects of the contract, like paying any advances due on signature. We're going to make sure all the contributors are set up on Consonance, and then everyone can be credited, and you know, translators and illustrators and everyone, and so that they can be included in workflow updates as well. And we'll be setting up the initial reporting requirements as well, mainly in-house at this stage. So it'll be, you know, the process of doing key handovers between acquisition and editorial and production. So these are the things we'll look at today in Consonance, how to do these things. So first up, we're going to add a work from scratch. There are a number of different ways to do this in Consonance, but we will cover adding a work from scratch. Then we will add a work by duplicating an existing one, so sort of form of templating. Then we're going to add a work or a lot of works by importing from a spreadsheet. After that, when we've got our works set up, we're going to start to record metadata, you know, really getting the most of this system being your single version of the truth, the place where data lives, and so everyone can look at this single instance and know that that's the correct price at this time, the correct pub date, the correct ISBN 13 and so on. We're going to start looking at this critical path, these workflow ideas again. And so we're going to add a to-do, and first of all, just a single to-do from scratch. then we're going to add to-dos by duplicating a whole bunch of them. Because a lot of the time, just doing one of these things from scratch, it's not the most efficient way to do it. So it's always an option. It's also really nice to know how to perform things in batch. Once workflow is trundling, then we're going to set up the contract, and we're going to have a look at how you can enter contractual information for the purposes of getting a PDF out of the system for signature by the signatories, but also setting up the information that you need now for running royalties much further down the line. We're going to look at some contact information and make sure that contributors are set up and their data is correct and accurate and fulsome. And finally, we're going to do a little bit of reporting, and this is going to be internal reporting. We're going to be producing a brief to hand over from maybe editorial to production or another in-house department. So those are the things on our plate. Next time we'll be covering the next part of the process, which is editorial. But for right now, we're interested in just these early stages, getting everything set up to optimise for success as the process carries on. So I'll leave our agenda up there so we can refer back to it. But now I'm going to move over to the system itself, and we're going to get started adding some works. So let's move over to Firefox. I'm using Firefox today. Consonance is a web app, so it works in a browser. I'm using Firefox. You might use Chrome. Any modern browser is, well, you know how the internet works. That's entirely acceptable. And we try to make the feeling of living in Consonance as familiar as possible. So you'll see the system fonts that you're familiar with, the system colours, and the way that you navigate through Consonance is intended to be very internet normal. When you see something blue and underlined, that's a link, follow that, and it will behave as you'd expect it to behave. So what we're looking at here is an account set up on Consonance, and it's for an imaginary publisher. So you're seeing the real system here, but it's got pretend data in it. This publisher is called Feline Press and has a particular editorial interest in publishing books about cats, but imaginary, I must hasten to add. And as we go through this, so as well as covering the processes we've talked about, I also want to make sure that we get to look at some of the ways to get the most out of Consonance. So to start, for instance, I'm going to press the left-hand square button, the square bracket, and then I'm going to press it again. And that is going to collapse and show the left-hand navigation area. And I can also use the mouse to do that by clicking close sidebar there and then open the sidebar as well. I just want to make sure that you feel comfortable moving around Consonance using the tools that you feel are most appropriate at the time, the keyboard, the mouse, tabbing into different areas, opening multiple tabs in a browser at the same time. Using the browser bookmarks is another thing you can do. Since this is on the web, you may as well get the most out of it being a website. And then sometimes when you spend a lot of time on one website, you kind of get inured to it and you sort of don't see everything on the screen anymore. So I'm also going to point out the help link just here, and that takes you to a number of different places, documentation, to the community forum, or if you want to raise a support ticket, click there and you'll be able to send a message directly from within Consonance. While we're looking at documentation and that sort of thing, I'll just say that whilst it's very lovely to be talking with you today, this video course, is going to end up being many hours of videos, which you can't really trawl through to find help for whatever you need in the moment when you need it. So I just want to remind you that there are various ways that you can get help right when you do need it, which are searching on the documentation website, looking in the interface at the inline help, and raising a support ticket. So we're going to look at those things today as we go, and I'll keep mentioning them when it becomes relevant. Okay, like I say, today we are a commissioning editor, we've got a list in our head or on a spreadsheet or somewhere of what works we're going to consider for the list. And what we always advise is get works into Consonance as soon as they're even a vague idea, pre-acquisition for absolute sure. Don't leave it until you need to send metadata to Nielsen. Otherwise it's just it's like a drudge exercise. And you know, that really does come across in the data quality. You can tell when someone's having to write the 15th blurb of the day, because, you know, it's only so many ways you can generate that enthusiasm. But here at the beginning of the process, we are enthused. We're trying to sell it to our colleagues as much as to anyone in the outer world. And so sort of harness that energy and put the data in early into the system. If you do it right at the start, you can then all relax into the idea that Consonance is the one source of truth for whatever the current data is. And then you're getting the most out of the system. So we're going to start by adding some works, even if they may not end up being acquired. And we're going to do it in 3 ways, as I mentioned, by importing, by duplicating, and from scratch. So we'll do it from scratch first. This is the most laborious and least cool way, but sometimes you do need to know how to do it from scratch. So I'm going to go to products, bibliographic products. Actually, let's just have a little chat about naming. So you see we've got works and products there. Quite a lot of thought went into these words. Originally, Consonance called the individual things that you sell a book. But what is a book? A single copy, a publication, a piece of writing? Does that word, book, encompass format, or is it more of a description of the manuscript? Like, would you say that the hardback and the paperback are both the book? So then we thought, well, book's a bit woolly. So what about splitting out the piece of writing from the physical form? Bibliographic professionals might describe the work and its manifestations with impressions, which means printings, producing items. And this is fine, but putting the word manifestation on the nav, I mean, no one would have any idea what it meant. So then we thought, let's call them editions, right? But that word is like one of the most loaded. You can have a paperback edition, which is a format descriptor, or you can have a second edition, and that's a time descriptor, or you can have the Penguin edition, which is a publisher descriptor, or you can have the library edition, I think that's a customer descriptor, or you can have the US edition, so that's territory. And what if you had the digital edition, which turns out to actually be 3 books, EPUB, PDF and Mobi? So we tried edition and we tried book and we tried manifestation, and you know, the other options are things like product or ISBN or version or SKU. Amazon refers to books and formats. Some bibliographic systems refer to works and editions. The powers that be call them works and manifestations. And then Onyx, the language of book data, calls them products and mostly leaves aside the whole concept of works. So, you know, works can be called works, but also titles or product lines. A lot of the options there are kind of arcane or ambiguous. Like, you have to say, what's the title's title? Which is, don't like. Basically, publishing hasn't agreed on a name for the things we produce. For Consonance, though, we've decided to call the body of the writing a work and the things that you sell the products. And so these are the terms that you're going to see on the menus and throughout the app. So, and also Consonance can be used to store information about maps and spinners and posters and apps and software and audio files and other sorts of content related products. So products does seem like a good choice to keep our options open. Okay, I'm going to add this work. So I'm going to add a work from scratch, and I'm going to click on add work, and it takes me to this page, and I've got 2 options here, duplicate an existing work or add a new work from scratch. So I choose add a new work from scratch. It says after you click create, you will be taken to the metadata page where you will start to build up your metadata record. You'll add new products from the tools menu at the foot of that page. So this really is starting from scratch. This is just creating a work with no assumption that you're going to have a paperback, a hardback, an ebook or an audio book. you're going to have to add those in yourself. And so you can tell in the interface here, the team here are slightly eye-rolling, saying it's generally more efficient to duplicate an existing work or import from a spreadsheet. So this is like I say, this is the most laborious option. But I'll click Create. And then here is your new work, ready to fill in. It's got nothing. It's got no title. It's got no identity. It's not got any identifiers, which are things such as the ISBN 13 or the GTIN. In fact, it's got no products to attach an ISBN 13 to. It's got no series information. It's got no formats, nothing at all. So the first thing we're going to have to do on this work is to create a product to go with it. So this is the process that we would have to follow if we were creating a work from absolute scratch. But I want to move on to duplicating a work, which gives us a lot more information. So the way to do that is, again, to go back to either works or products, click on add a work, and this time I'm going to choose duplicate an existing work. So here are the works that are already in the system. I've got 2 works that don't sound very real, and that's because they are not very real. You can use a normal kind of work record to act as a template, and so I've called those an exemplar. One's for a kind of reference book, and another one I called Crash, because that's got a crash schedule on it. Because with the best will in the world, we always do try, don't we, to be all organised. But sometimes a book comes along and we just have to get it to market. And so why not plan for that inevitability up front and come up with a crash schedule? And then in the moment, you can use your previous thinking. So, with Consonance, we really try to make it possible to do real publishing. Everything is difficult, everything is complicated, we have to be pragmatic, and so use the tools to enable you to plan, but don't try and be too po-faced about the whole process. It's a living process. So let us duplicate Cats of the World. Cats of the World is a work about cats of the world. I'm going to call it, give a new title to this, so we'll say Cats in Space. Very exciting new project I've got in mind. And there's a button here that says read what gets duplicated as standard. So I'm going to have a look at this. Any button like this is going to open some help inline. Remember I said that we were going to have a look at some of the inline help. Well, this can be really, really useful to just give you a sense, rather than having to go to the documentation website, give you a sense of some of the detailed support and thinking behind this. So you can have a scan to think, oh, okay, it does include the products, it's going to include the publishing status, it's going to include the year of annual. Great, this is good to know. These are the things that get included as standard, but we can also optionally include some other types of data. We can include marketing texts, contributors, keywords, subject classifications, audience information, series, content files, languages, publishing roles, role fulfillments, and compilation works as well. So I'm going to include most of those and click duplicate, and I'm going to get a much more pleasing record. Plenty of information here that has been copied over from the existing work. So what you have to do with this approach is choose the approach that works for you. We've added a work from scratch. That's very laborious. We've added a work by duplicating. We're going to upload a spreadsheet in a moment. If you're entering the basics of a whole series, I'd import them. Are you entering maybe 5 or 6 works? Maybe set one up from scratch, call it an exemplar, and then duplicate that. Maybe you're entering a work that's quite similar to one that you did 18 months ago or 5 years ago. So duplicate that one. And then, maybe all the contributor information gets carried over, all of the subject information. So you can use this idea that there are multiple ways to do things in Consonance, and sometimes the batch approach is the most expedient and the most helpful. So I'll just carry on scanning through our new Cats in Space. work that I'm going to propose to my colleagues, and it's carried over the 4 products that I'm interested in that were on the previous one. What else have we got? I can use this menu on the left hand side here to navigate. It's got a particular contributor, it's got some files, and now I can upload new information as well. So if I upload the front cover, which I'm going to say is approved, then I think somewhere I've got cats in space, JPEG. Great, this is one of our cats. No model release has been secured, sadly, so hopefully the cat won't come after me. And so I'm going to be able to continue to edit this this metadata record as new information becomes available, as the project moves through the publishing process. So that's going to upload. I'm now going to upload the a spreadsheet of works, and that's going to be from this menu option over here. So I'm navigating to data exchange and imports. And there are a number of different types of data that can be imported without you having to raise a support ticket into Consonance. There's contacts, prices, products, royalty information, and sales. Today I am going to import products, and previously I've downloaded the product template and I filled it in. If I can probably show you what I have filled in. So this is my Excel spreadsheet here. The column headings are from our template, and you have to not change them because otherwise Consonance won't know what data you're talking about. So I've got 38 new works here, all with different information. And this is the sort of starter kit, really, that you can use to get a big slug of works updated all in one go. So let's go back to the interface and see if we can upload that. So I'm going to browse to find my product demo spreadsheet, and then I'm going to click upload and validate. Now Consonance is going to do the best it can to fix up any of the data that you've entered that might be a little wanting. But if you get it really badly wrong, then it's going to boot you out and say this is not a valid file. You've tried to upload a column of data that we've never heard of. You've put the pub dates as all being in the year 9999. Please try again. But it's going to feed back to you through this interface whether the data is okay or not. But whilst I'm waiting for that to upload, I just want to show you the very useful documentation website that you must go to when you're doing a process like this, one of the imports, because in the moment when you're doing it, this is the level of detail that you need to be able to get it right the first time, or to satisfy the edge cases that one always has. You think, oh gosh, well, I've got the hardback and the paperback and the EPUB of a particular work. I want to import all of those, but I don't want multiple works. I want individual products. How do I do that? So this page will tell you exactly how to do that by using a same work identifier, and it can be anything you want. But come here and read this in the moment and get the exact information about exactly what it is that Consonance will accept. But back on our interface here, Consonance has had a look at this Excel spreadsheet, and miraculously I've got it right first time. If I had got some issues, no doubt it would have told me, but I can see what has been taken and looked at here. I can see that I did get something wrong. I said that it was meant to be a hardback, but I also said it was going to be a DMI hardback, so the product form is going to be overwritten by the proprietary description code, which is fine. Thank you, Consonance, very good. So there's my draft products. I'm going to approve the import, and then I'm going to go to my my products page and I'm going to, in a moment, be able to see a whole big load of extra products. I've got 16 at the moment. In just a moment, that's going to be a much greater number. So we have imported or added our original initial work data to the system in 3 different ways, and so that's going to be picking the right sort of approach for the project at hand that you've got. So the same sort of thinking needs to be applied to to-dos. How are you going to enter this data? Is it appropriate to enter it to-do by to-do, or are you going to use a slightly more bulk approach? So we'll look at to-dos now, and first of all I'll add one from scratch, but it's usually much better to add a whole set at the same time, and there's a number of different ways we can do that. So first of all, let's go to one of my existing products, because that's already got to-dos set up on it, and we can have a look at how to add an individual one. I'm on the list page for all of my products at the moment, and over on the right hand side here I can click to navigate to a number of different places throughout Consonance. I am going to go to to-dos. That's going to take me straight there. And so here I've got a whole bunch of to-dos that I've set up previously, and they are all, well, there's a number of things going on here. They're all keyed against existing real world dates that have been put in the system, such as the manuscript delivery date in the contract, which we'll look at shortly, or the earliest pub date for any one of the products that we're looking at. So if I look at, let's say, update consonant subject coding, this is due next February. It's for the people in charge of the metadata, whoever they may be, to do, and at that point, when the manuscript's been delivered and we have a really good idea of what this book is about, we need those people to go in and update the consonants subject coding. So I'm going to click on this, and that's going to click on this, and that's going to bring up a sort of edit interface for this to do. So what needs to get done is that. Who is responsible? Now what we've got here is a role. It's not an individual person, and it's not an organisation. It's a role. And this is one of the really nice things about setting up your to-dos in advance in Consonance. You don't need to know who's going to be running the list in 2025. You don't need to know who's on the design rota at that point. You can say, essentially, somebody in design is going to have to do this, or the managing editor, whoever gets allocated this work, is going to have to do this. But it's not going to slow you down in planning the critical path. You're going to be able to say, so far, what we know is the managing editor is going to be doing this to do. Later, you can add an individual human person to the managing editor role, and then this will magically update itself. No further data entry necessary. So very nice to be able to do something and know that it's going to be taken care of as the data becomes more and more fulsome, and you know what's going on more. The next bit of this interface, we've got 3 different options for saying when the thing is due. You can use this as a kind of checklist, as a sort of straightforward box of check boxes against a list, like a shopping list. At some point this thing has to be done, but we're not saying by who or by when. We're just going to know that it's done or not done. That's completely appropriate for some projects. The fixed due date is completely appropriate for some to-dos. If you're planning, I don't know, a Christmas party and it's falling on Christmas Day, then the due date is going to have to be the 25th of December. So it's sometimes entirely appropriate to say this is a fixed due date. But the most malleable and the most interesting way of saying when this to-do is due is to say that it's relative to another date in the system. And what I mean by that is that this to-do is due 15 months before the earliest pub date of any of the products. So that's the 1st of May 2025. If we didn't have the pub date in yet, wouldn't matter. We could still say earliest pub date, and then when our colleagues have put the pub date in and finalised it, the to-dos update themselves. Oh, it's so great. So we've got publishing date information that we can key against. You know, the most generic one is the earliest pub date, and that's fine. You could have the earliest ebook pub date. So if this to-do was only to do with ebooks, you could say, well, when's the earliest ebook pub date going to happen? Or, you know, it gets more and more specific as it goes down. But then even better, we can key these to-dos against contract dates and the production handover date as well. You know, these key milestones. As we know in publishing, everything starts to go wrong if the manuscript is late. I mean, the knock-on effect is like dominoes. So if you want to have a really tight control of the process, key some of your to-dos against some of the dates that the signatories have signed up to in the contract. And then you can put in things such as, you know, chase, number one chase. When's it due? 3 months before the earliest manuscript artwork date. And then you can, you know, have a lovely chat with the person who's responsible saying, 3 months to go, you know, let me know any problems. Then you can have another to do 2 months before. Still haven't seen that artwork, everything okay? You know, you get to get a heads up of any looming potential problems further down the line, and you can take action. So you're, rather than signing a contract, printing it out, putting it in a filing cabinet somewhere, these dates are staying live and real and being useful, so that Consonance, the computer, can prompt you to do some human action in the real world. So those are the 3 different ways that you can say when this to-do is going to be due. You can say when it has been done, and you can either fill in this box or tick it off on the to-do page. Then there's 3 different statuses, types here for saying whether a to-do is regular, ad hoc, or milestone. And these are just there for reporting. You know, it's so nice to be able to do a milestone calendar feed of your key works. And so you can see, you know, the big hitters like handover from editorial to production, send to print, stock confirmed in warehouse. You know, just those 3 to-dos are like a heartbeat of how things are going across a whole list. So rather than having all of the clutter of, you know, update the subject codes, you know, you don't need to see that for every single work across the whole list. You can just report on the milestone, high visibility to-dos, and really, really useful to get a sense of whether there are any problems to worry about. The next bit down, we've got an idea about dependencies. So if this is a to-do that's dependent on something else happening, which one is it? And so we've got all of these to-dos from the rest of this work. So we might say, you know, that editorial have to accept the author's manuscript revisions before we can update the subject coding. It's a slightly contrived example, but you know, save that, and then we can see that, oh gosh, this is blocked because that dependency hasn't yet been done. So there's lots of tools here available to take real data, take real dates, make the best use of them, avoid you having to update schedules as well as the data. You know, the schedule, the to-dos are going to update themselves. And speaking of that, let's go in and actually set an individual person to be responsible as the managing editor on this particular work. So I'm going to go to roles, and I can see that I've already got an allocating editor, an artwork director, a managing editor, and a production controller role. Feline Press, the organisation itself, is down as the managing editor. So I don't want that, I want an actual human. And so the managing editor, remove that, the managing editor is going to be me with a different hat on. So I can add that, and now we've got that, you know, that real trick, because things only get done if you've allocated a responsibility to a particular person. It's now on their list. it's very unlikely that an unallocated to-do is actually ever going to get done at any time. So it's really nice to be able to say the role in particular is the managing editor. On this work at this time, this is the particular person. And now if we go back to the to-dos, we're going to be able to see that this has been updated, and now we're a little bit more, targeted. We've got the individual person responsible and on the hook for doing it. So that's adding, or editing, I suppose, in this case, an individual one at a time to do. And if I wanted to add another to do to this work, I would click add to do, if I was on the right thing. And then I could say something like, then I could say something like check in stock, and I might prefix it with the department name, unimaginatively saying stock. I could assign a role or an individual person, or no one at any time, and I can say, okay, it's going to be relative to a pub date. I can actually do a negative relativity. So this is 3 months after the earliest pub date, and I'm going to make it an ad hoc to do because it's only relevant to this particular work, and then that's been added in, and that won't get copied onto another work. So I spoiled and I showed you the copy interface a moment ago. So I'll go to another work. I can see that here's on notifications my imports got approved. So if I go back to products, I can see I've got 54 products now, not the original 16. So let's choose cats 36 things that cats can do. This will not have any to-dos at the moment because we only just uploaded it from the spreadsheet. So I'm going to start this one from scratch. As I say, I could laboriously add individual to-dos, but I'm not going to do that because there's a general process that happens for all of my works, and so I'm going to be able to copy from another work. So we don't have templates. What we do have are existing works and also works that we have ascribed as being exemplars. So that means that if you've got a work that went particularly well and you absolutely aced the critical path and you want that to be the exemplar, no need to turn that into an exemplar, you can just copy it. Or you can set up a work with the explicit intention of being a to-do template. So I'm going to copy all those 32s. Same kind of thing, but the timescales are a bit tighter. So already all of this is overdue, which is quite lovely. So that is adding a to-do individually and adding a whole bunch of to-dos in one go. What we're going to look at next is the contract. Because actually one of the things that at the initial stage that should be on the to-do list is setting up the contract. And so we're sort of eating our own dog food at this point by getting the acquisition editor to look at the contract and get it moving. So I am going to go to one of my original works, and I'm going to again click on that menu option there and click on contract. And here we are on a page. It looks a bit like the metadata page, but this time the intention is to store contract information, including rights and royalties information, so that we can generate a PDF that can be used for signature. So clicking on that button gives me the PDF. It's a little bit like those Microsoft Word mail merges, if you've ever had to use one of those, where you can embed data that exists in the system within the body of the clauses. But otherwise, this is sort of words that have been added in, and we'll see in a moment. So lots of words, lots of words, lots of words, and then a series of schedules as well. So any of the author cuts, the licensed rights author cuts appear here. We've also got royalty information and delivery date information, and other information on in separate schedules, which can be referenced in the contract clauses up above there. So that's what we're aiming for. And really, what I want to draw your attention to on this page is that the inline help is really helpful to be looking at when you're in the moment, and you need to know what exactly is the ramification for putting this information in. So the inline help is in two different ways. Look for these eye icons and click on them, and you'll see a snippet of information. So here it says, it's the name of the contract. This text does appear on the PDF of the contract in Schedule A. So that gives you a sense of, okay, why am I putting this data in and what is going to happen to it later? Same sort of thing for these delivery dates here. You know, there's lots of these eyes, these information icons. Here's another one, and telling you how you can make the most of this data. You can add this licenses tag into your clause, and then it'll print out these licenses. And then there's other sorts of information, such as a bit of a headline and then a read more button. So if you see a read more button and click on it, that's going to open the information on the right hand side here. So definitely harvest when you're in the moment, you know, because here I am shouting at you on YouTube, and it'll all go in one ear and out the other, but you'll sit down and you'll think, what is a payee? What are payees? How are they different from signatories? And so come here and use the inline help, and it will make a lot of sense. And as you'll recall earlier on, I mentioned if it doesn't make sense and the inline help gets you so far but you need further help, raise a ticket. Every user of the system, we encourage you to be in touch as much as you want. We don't want you to have to go through an individual within your organisation in a sort of gatekeeping sense. You know, we actively encourage everyone to talk to us in the moment, because that's when things will be clearest in your mind. You'll be able to say, I've got this really weird edge case, can you help? And we're around to help. That's what we're here for. So definitely please do lean on raising a ticket when you've read the inline help, you've read the documentation website, and it's got you so far but not ultimately to where you need to go. Some of the types of data here, the acquiring editor would be actually, you know, using. This is a good example, adding advances. So let's add an advance here. We can say, well, it's going to be a hardback and the advance value is £200 and it's going to be on signature and the due date is today, let's say, and Bob Cratchit gets the recipient. And if I add a paid date as well, then we're going to get a payment included as well. So if I save that, I'm not going to have to add payment information as well. I'm going to be able to get the system to do that heavy lifting as well. So adding in information is intended to match reality as much as possible. You know, the moment the finance department has confirmed that you've added in that data, oh my god, money has been sent to the external person, either they or whoever has been made responsible should come and update Consonance so that this is reliable information. I've just added that advance through the interface. As you can imagine, there's spreadsheet uploaders where you can add a whole big load of payment information all in one go. So again, you'd go to data exchange, you'd go to imports, you'd choose the right importer for you. As I mentioned, there are importers for contacts, for prices, for sales transactions, and for all of this sort of royalty information as well. So it's worth having a good look there. The only other thing I want to show you here is the filter at the top of the page. Now, pages like this, you know, there is a lot going on, and you often come to a page like this and you're looking for one particular thing. So, you know, you're looking for wording. And so here I am. I'm able to type in the vague idea of the sort of information that I'm looking for on this page, and the page is going to filter down to just the wording. So this is quite an underused part of the system, but it can be really, really handy. You know, signed date. What is the signed date? Well, it's filtered it down to that, and also references here, because the only contract clause has got signed date there. So definitely use that. There's another one on the metadata page as well. If I search for, on the metadata page, if I search for, I don't know, series, then it's going to get whittled down to just the series there. So that can ease your path through consonants, through your working day, quite a nice way. The other thing on our agenda, casting our mind back to our agenda from a while back, here is the agenda, was contributors setup. And you'll have noticed that because we've imported contributor information into Consonance, because they're contributors to the works, job done. We don't have to set up contributors. So this is really one of the joys of a relational database, that Consonance is your one version of the truth. Equally, there's one version of the truth. There's one contact record behind the scenes. It's not that you're typing in the same name again and again and again. There's one record. So, you know, you put all of the information that is relevant for that one contact in place. So let's have a look to see what we've got here. We've got somebody called Mary Glover contributing to Cats of the World. If I expand this view, we're going to see a little bit more information about Mary Glover. We can do that for the files as well. And then if I click to edit, we're going to be able to edit even more information. If I was wanting to actually add a new contributor, I wouldn't have to go all the way over to people and contacts, although I could if I wanted. In fact, I'm on the wrong bit. Sorry about that. What I could do is come to the metadata page and click add a contributor, rather than, you know, having to go over to the contacts page and fill in a whole record and then come back and lose my thread. I can type in a name, and I'm going to be able to create Emma Barnes either as a person or as an organisation, and then I'm going to be able to provide some starter information, and then say that she's going to be the illustrator. Again, you know, using filters to whittle down lists and get to where I want to be quickly. We're going to say that the EPUB doesn't need illustrations. It's going to be text only for ease of layout. So we can optionally unselect one of the products if it's not relevant. Save that, and then there's Emma Barnes sitting there nicely. So if I collapse this back to the summary view, it's going to be a lot easier to see, you know, when we've got a long list of contributors, and it's also going to be easier to sort them. So now Emma Barnes is going to appear as sequence number 1 in the Onyx when it goes out. Sounds a bit niche, but that is the order that Amazon are going to interpret the list of authors. So if you've got a particular order for authors and other contributors in mind, then that's the way to effect change in the real world. Make sure that consonance is right, and then the data will feed out appropriately. So that's adding a contributor. I could go through to Mary Glover, and I could see a bit more information about her setup. If I click on her name, then I can either see all of the products that she's contributed to, or is all of the co-contributors that she's worked with. And if I visit the profile, you can see that I can start to really build up a fuller picture of who this person is, all of their different names. Again, you know, what we're trying to do with Consonance is provide a clear interface when you're just starting to fill out a record, but as more information becomes available, you're going to be able to layer on more and more and more data, get a richer and richer record, because rich data means money, better sales, and better fulfillment of your contractual obligations in taking on the publication of a work. So it's really nice to be able to just, keep coming back, keep layering on information as you go. We'll be looking at this page more in further sessions on the Consonance course. But for now, the last thing on our agenda was a little smattering of reporting. At this stage, we're going to produce a brief for handing this project over from the acquisition stage, maybe onto editorial or to production. So let's have a look at one of our existing products. I'm going to see that Cats of the World will have a briefing note, and these are again templated, so when I duplicate these to start with, I'm going to be able to set up a one or more briefing notes depending on what your internal processes end up being. And these are really nice because they're a sort of an in-house advanced information sheet. They're going to give you all of the bibliographic data that would appear on the advanced information sheet and ultimately in the Onyx, but it's a bit early for that. But also you can add in private information that's only relevant to the smooth in-house process. Here, obviously this wouldn't go out anywhere. Cover photo needs to be of the author's actual cat. Handover notes the author expects to be updated weekly. So use tools like this to really get handover out of email and into something that is shared and everyone can see. An even better and more fruitful way of sharing that sort of information is by starting a discussion. And so this work already has one discussion. I can add to this discussion, or I can start a new one. And a discussion is going to be copied to people's emails if they want. I can add somebody to this discussion and they're going to get an email. Yes, do a reprint, obviously. I can add that comment, and now we've got the best of both worlds. We've kept discursive information close to the other more structured information, but that person's been copied on email as well, so they're going to get notified and they're not going to have to know to come here and to look up the discussions. So we wrote the discussions feature actually during lockdown, because suddenly a lot of publishing started to work from home, and this almost replaces the post-it notes left on people's desks idea. There's a lot of subtle, nuanced discussion that needs to occur around the production of a work that doesn't really fit into little drop downs and boxes. So it's a lovely way to retain that history of how a book comes to pass, as much as all of the more structured data around it. So I think that our role as an acquisition editor is nearly done. We can get a sense of how the list is shaping up. We've got our list of products here, quite cat heavy, we can see. These are all imported from the spreadsheet. One of the things we did was add a new work individually, and this was Cats in Space. I think this was the one we duplicated because we've got all of the data kind of for free. What else have we got? We've got started to have the shape of the overall season appearing now. So seasons is quite a new dashboard within Consonance, but you can see that at a glance we're starting to get some really interesting information appearing here. So we've got 17 works without a marketing tier, might want looking at. We've got a nice even spread of works by work type. We've got some problems with our to-dos, better hop on it. we've got 38 works where there aren't any roles. Who's going to do all the work? We need to amend that, and so on and so forth. And so some really lovely aggregation of information here that we can see. And speaking of aggregation, we can look at some of the check results as well. Now, this is looking a little parlous at the moment because we've only just started this set of works, but this is another form of to-do list that we're going to be able to follow as the process unfolds. So it's really interesting to see that we're doing fine for some of this data, but if I wanted to just dip into the system and see how the covers are coming on, I know that 4 of these works don't have an approved cover yet, and that's a bit problematic. So that's starting to become really useful as well. We can see these check results, by the way, at the work level, which becomes even more actionable because we can start to think, well, we don't really. This isn't necessarily a material consideration for this particular work. We'll suppress it for this one, or indeed for everything. So it's very much a case of providing you some tools, but then you're able to finesse it and make the system work for you in your particular approach. So short of generating a bunch of AIs to see how things are going, and I'll just have a quick look at one of them. Again, it's going to be a little bit spare on the ground, but maybe not doing too bad. We've got the cover, we've got some information coming, but there's still more work to be done, and that's what we'll do this time next week. So I think we can wrap up for the moment. So thank you very much indeed for coming. Just before I go, a huge thank you to the Consonance team for all their hard work throughout the year. They are the ones who make all of this possible, so well done, you amazing people. Everyone tune in this time next week for the second exciting instalment, which is the editorial stage. Please like and subscribe, as they say, so then I don't have to email anyone to remind you that it's on. And if you are craving more thrilling Consonance content in the meantime, then check out the Thoughtful Little Innovations playlist that's, I think, just here. There's a selection of little 30-second bursts of very useful things that make working in consonance as pleasant and seamless as possible. So any feedback whatsoever on this live stream is extremely welcome. If you can send it to support@consonance.app, that would be very helpful so that we can make each one better and better. So thank you very much.